Basics are cool to begin watercolor. You'll learn wet and wet, wet on dry, practice a few brush strokes, great. But it's not what's gonna help you paint a photo of what you have in mind. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the real watercolor basics, the kind that will actually change how you paint. This reference photo was taken during a trip to Sukua in the Basque Country, and it's the perfect example because it can either work beautifully or fall completely flat. Supplies and techniques are only a small part of the picture. So first, I'll share a few things most beginner guides never mention, and then I'll show you how decisions are what really drive a painting. We've all heard about using a limited palette, but why? The goal isn't fewer colors for its own sake. It's easier harmony. For this painting, I'm using a bright red, yellow, and blue, a dark for shadows, and a touch of turquoise. Once you have enough for light, mid, and dark tones, you can paint almost anything, because what matters isn't the colors themselves, but how they relate on the paper. Same with brushes. I keep just a few nearby, a large one for washes and a smaller one for details. Some artists prefer synthetic brushes, I don't, but it's mostly about convenience and personal preference, not some secret advantage. Paper, however, is more important. 100% cotton, cold press, 300 grams per square meter like this Bale Hong paper here performs better than cellulose paper. It's going to stay wet longer and let the paint flow more naturally. So as you can see, apart from paper, supplies aren't really what solve most watercolor problems. And as you're about to find out, it's the same for techniques. Now the painting starts, and for me, the first decision in any landscape is to leverage the wet and wet technique. Most people see it as a loose effect, and it is, but I mainly use it to build a foundation. What beginners often miss is that watercolor isn't just spontaneous, it's largely anticipation. So before I even wet the paper, I've already decided that the top of the boat will stay white, so I leave it untouched. That's planning, not technique. And paper works if you prepare it properly. I fully saturate it so the moisture goes deep into the cotton fibers and stays open longer. If you skip that step, even good paper dries too fast, creates harsh edges, and becomes harder to control. Then there's paint consistency, which is directly tied to that. By now, I know I need enough water for the paint to flow, but enough pigment so it still has strength when it dries. So I usually start slightly watery. Then I gradually move toward creamier mixtures as the paper begins to dry. Because the truth is, the paper is always changing, and many beginners get trapped. Because even when it looks the same, the moisture is dropping second by second. Watercolor is really about adapting to that invisible shift. So first, increase the amount of paint in your mixes little by little. Second, try and never stay in one area too long. You can see I move constantly across the sheet. Not because I paint randomly, but because I need to keep the entire surface evenly wet. If one area dries faster than another, that wet and wet stage will quickly become frustrating. Now, as this first layer develops, color harmony starts to take shape, and as usual, it's a decision I've pre-planned and made on purpose. That's why I prefer building my own variations instead of relying on a fixed palette. I don't think more colors. I think connected colors. For example, I added a turquoise blue to my palette because I noticed the boat of my reference had it, and I thought I could leverage it as well in the sea, along a more standard blue. That's why already now, I make sure both blues appear across the painting. So the turquoise from the boat is also echoed in the water later. It will create a visual link between subject and environment. And this is where most people get it wrong because we're taught color mixing as formulas. Red and yellow make orange, blue and yellow make green. But as you can see, the real purpose with colors is really to build relationships, not formulas. As the wash settles, I focus on brushstrokes as they all carry meaning. For instance, straight strokes feel different from curved ones and controlled strokes feel different from broken ones. And for this C, I want calmness. So I keep everything mostly horizontal. And what's interesting is how little you actually need. A few marks are enough and the brain fills in the rest. That's why you've probably heard before that you shouldn't paint everything and just suggest. Even more important, the boat hasn't been painted yet, but I'm already thinking about reflections. They need to be planned while the paper is still wet, otherwise they lose their natural softness. This is where edges matter. Too sharp and it stops feeling like water. Too soft and it loses form. I aim for a balance that feels fluid but still readable. And at this stage, it's a good time to add them because the paper is no longer fully wet, so the paint stays closer to where I place it, and I'm able to control how I paint the reflections. Then, once I have a solid foundation, you can see it's the case here. I make sure everything is dry and I move into the wet on dry technique for the boat itself. And the difference is immediate. The boat quickly stands out, not because of any detail, but because the edges are now sharper against a soft background. It's a form of contrast you want to have in your paintings, especially if you enjoy a bit of realism like me. But we like our watercolors loose, so even here, I'm still controlling edges constantly. I soften certain parts like this pole with a clean and damp brush, especially where I want transitions instead of hard lines. I do the same inside the boat when I add blue shadows into the white areas. I'm able to place the paint exactly where I want it because the surface is dry, but I soften some of it selectively so it disappears into the white paper. So it still feels very soft and like this is a light area, but it stays controlled and it gives the boat volume and realism at the same time. And this is where the painting really starts to come together. Contrast becomes most obvious here, not only in the shift between soft and defined edges, but also in the strength of the value differences between light and dark. For example, you can see how the shadows inside the boat, on the plank, and under the small buoys immediately turn a very flat shape into a three-dimensional object. And that is not detail or technique doing that. That's color value. It is so important to understand and improve how you paint. The way I achieve this is very simple. I just use less water and more pigment in my paints. And I also include my darker color little by little. At the same time, the limited palette starts to connect everything, and it's easy. It comes naturally, since I have just a few colors in the first place. So for example, if I need brown, I mix it from the same primaries I used in the water and buoys. Nothing is separate and nothing looks out of place. And that's what harmony really is. It's not about perfect color choices, it comes with repeated relationships across the painting. The warm accents become especially important here because everything else is dominated by blue. Without them, the painting would feel cold and flat, but with them, the eye has places to travel and points of focus. As I move into what I call the refining stage, I think less about large shapes and more about small details. And details in watercolor are often misunderstood because it's not about avoiding them, because we're always warned about how little we should add. It's about choosing which ones deserve to exist for this painting to look complete. So what I do is focus on the essential elements of my photo, and I avoid zooming too far into it. So here with this boat, the ropes and buoys are really what complete it, So for example, a common mistake would be to get too close, too precise, and overwork the details in them until they look very tight and out of place against the loose water. So when I add something like this rope here, I don't try to make it perfect. I break it intentionally. The viewer's brain has enough data with the boat and the sea to complete it. That's what suggestions really means. After that, we already have everything we need, so if there's anything to improve, techniques can take over. For example, for even more of that loose effect in my realistic paintings, I like to lift highlights. I re-wet small areas and I remove pigment to bring back the light. These are not pure white like untouched paper, but they create softer transitions. They sit between light and color, and you can see they help create ripples, soft reflections, and subtle changes in the boat. And now I think it's obvious that what we're left with isn't just a scene made out of great supplies and techniques. Of course they helped, but this worked because of a series of decisions I've made. Light against dark, soft against hard, warm against cool. And that's really what these watercolor basics are. The ones that will help improve faster are not techniques, but just a bunch of relationships between shapes and colors. If you want to practice this in a structured, step-by-step way without the overwhelm, I'll leave links to my courses in the description of the video. And if this video made watercolor click for you, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.